braided foot injuries, and this is good for that sort of thing. And there you have it. Oh, here's another one. This is another product, basically, that the horse people came up with. It's very similar to the Vetricin, but it's also good for fungal things, scratches, ringworm, and yes, birds do get ringworm, by the way. They get it, and ringworm is something they get from the soil. It's an environmental fungus, and it doesn't make you a bad person if you get it, as I found out. So, okay. So, those are some of my suggestions. I think I've talked about everything. Does anybody have any questions? And I apologize that I didn't have my own projector, but I brought my dollies and dishes, and I hope you enjoyed seeing them.
I think that works great.
Better visual stuff.
I agree.
Oh, Lixit, Lixit. And the parts are available from Bertalog, and I think Jeffers Pets also sells them.
Windy City Parrot has some of the best prices on the Lixit stuff, and they have replacement.
Yeah.
I like Windy City Parrot.
Oh, I buy those bottles by the dozen, by the way, because you never know who's going to have a recreational time taking the bottle clips off.
So what is the magic cure for pluckers?
Well,
You'd be a millionaire if you knew
I know,
that.
right?
there is no magic cure. I have developed a regimen that works very often. And the reason I developed it is that we were in rescue, and it's much easier, we find, to find a home for a bird with feathers than one without. But the regimen generally is a diet change if they need it. There are many birds have allergies, and some birds are allergic to the foods we're feeding them. One of the reasons we have pet foods made out of corn as the main ingredient is that after the war we had a surplus of corn, and all the animal feeders said, what are we going to do with all this corn? So they essentially turned it into pet food. And we have been, up until recently, feeding our dogs, our cats, and everything else with corn-based products. Now, birds eat corn, and in fact, the reason the galahs hate it is that the galah loves corn and decimates crops. But birds need something more than corn, and some of them, corn it's tough to digest. I happen to like corn quite a bit, but I give my birds mostly raw corn. If I've got a bird that's plucking, I will take them off colored pellets. The pellet that I like the best to rehabilitate a plucker is Hagen. It's the Hagen extruded. It's highly digestible, and I have tasted every parrot food there is, even the ones that smell like modeling clay. And there are some. Hagen makes the lifetime formula, I believe, and it is, in my estimation, the easiest to digest, and it has a higher oil content than a lot of them. A lot of these extruded foods are too dried out, and the reason the birds can't digest them, or the reason that they start to pluck, is that they actually don't have enough moisture in them. Hagen has done a lot of research on them, and I really think they're onto something. And I speak to them at AFA all the time, and they've got certain oils in it. Like one of the things that's in it is orange oil, and I find it's a very good food to rehabilitate pluckers. And then lots of baths, lots of distractive toys. I use pine cones as the distractive toy, and it seems to also teach them how to preen. Because a lot of these birds were hand-raised, and they don't know how to preen. They don't know what it's supposed to feel like. All they know is that it's like, you got to do something with this feather. Oops, I plucked it out. So and they kind of get into it. And one of the things we found too is that when they pluck, it's like a cutter. It gives them an endorphin release. So it takes on a life of its own. So once they get into the habit, it's very difficult to break. But if you can distract them with toys, usually shreddable toys like those shredders that you can weave in and out of their cage, and pine cones and corn husks, and having them eat raw corn so that they're actually. The main thing is to keep that beak busy, which is why we use the corrugated toys for the birds rather than wood. So. Yes.
Something I want to add into that I have used for a golfing cockatoo that plucks is feather boas.
Oh yeah.
So we weave it in the cage, and they go to town plucking it. Let them pluck that, and then they leave themselves alone. Doesn't work for everyone, but it worked for our Daisy.
Yeah,
so.
I've used feather boas too.
Yep. They're a little messy. You get feathers everywhere.
Army, they have them new.
Amazon has 12 packs for super cheap for parties.
Dollar store used to have them for $1, but
Yeah.
they discontinued them. I don't know. I probably bought too many of them.
What about the Listerine spray and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, my refeathering regimen includes a topical spray like that, which is good if they have. Now, sometimes they actually have a feather fungus, and they're plucking the feathers because that fungus is bothering them, and we now know that fungus may actually be ringworm. So that's why one of these sprays would come in handy.
Should you have your bird like skin scraped and checked?
Yeah.
So if you take him into the doctor and you say, I'm here for a physical, and why, is there any reason he might be plucking? They would check.
They're going to do a full blood workup if you suspect ringworm, because it's got a certain look about it. It's essentially a roundish fungus. It's not a worm. It's just called ringworm. I don't know why. But it's a round fungus, usually with a light spot in the center, and it's sort of a little round thing. Yeah, a ring. It's a ring of little, what do they call them? Corpuscles or something like that, those little lumps. And it's that's what ringworm is. And if you have something that looks like that on your bird, that could be that.
Where would you even look for something like that?
On the chest.
Where the bald spots are?
On the chest, on the thigh, where they've got the feathers missing, or where they're constantly plucking. Cats get it, dogs get it, horses get it.
We got it.
People get it. Kids who play in the soil get it. I have a friend whose husband is a pipe fitter. He goes into the ditches. He gets it. It's a soil-borne fungus.
I agree. Always go to the vet first, though, if you have a plucker.
Oh yeah.
Because recently my African gray rubbed all her head feathers out, and at first I thought her buddy was pulling her feathers, so I separated them. I was like, "What'd you do to her? Oh my God!" Within 4 days, every head feather gone, all the way down to her neck. Could see the holes in her ears. Looked scabby and gross. I was like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with her? She's sick."
Mites?
Turned out, nope. That's what I thought too when I separated them. Brought her to the doctor, blood work. They looked under a microscope. Turned out they have a slit in the top of their roof of their mouth, and a piece of toy got stuck in the slit, and so she got a sinus infection from it. It got infected, and they treated her with Cipro, cleaned it out, whatever, and all her feathers are back. So it was literally a sinus infection that caused her to rub, and it was, a little kid pulling on their ear, like, my ear hurts.
Yeah.
She did that and rubbed them all out. So definitely look at it.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with. I always tell people about it.
Yeah.
People call me all the time. My bird's doing this and that. I am not a vet, and I would suggest you see one. However, were it my bird, I would check this. I usually go to the vet with some kind of, like I go to someone with my car. I go to some kind of prognosis.
Yeah.
I don't want to give me a valve job if it's really the gas cap.
That makes sense.
So I think one has to be sort of engaged as a consumer, not only as a panicked bird owner.